In the uncharted depths of space where stars burn with secrets untold, a single encounter could rewrite the fate of the galaxy. What begins as a routine scouting mission for the Velnathi, masters of stealth and technology, becomes a shocking revelation of a species that defies all expectations: humanity. The darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions, dotted with distant stars that flickered like tiny diamonds against black velvet. Scout Commander Zixthar stood on the bridge of his vessel, his three eyes focused on the holographic display before him. The display showed nothing unusual at first, just the empty void that separated the known galaxy from the unexplored territories beyond. Zixthar had been a scout commander for 20 cycles, a proud member of the Velnathi, a species renowned throughout the Galactic Council for their advanced technology and superior stealth capabilities. His gray skin reflected the blue light of the ship's instruments, and his tall, thin frame swayed slightly as he moved closer to examine the readings. "Commander, we are detecting unusual energy signatures ahead," reported Creval, a younger officer who had joined the scout fleet only 3 cycles ago. His voice carried a hint of excitement that made Zixthar's mandibles click in mild disapproval. Young officers were always too eager. "Display the readings," Zixthar ordered, his voice calm and measured. He had learned long ago that panic served no purpose in deep space. Whatever waited ahead, they would observe it, catalog it, and report it to the Council. That was the Velnathi way. The holographic display shifted, showing a cluster of energy readings approximately 2 million kilometers ahead. Zixthar studied the patterns carefully. The signatures were strange. Unlike anything in the Galactic Council's extensive database, they pulsed with irregular rhythms, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, as if whatever was generating them was still learning how to control its own power. "What sector are we in?" Zixthar asked. "Sector 7 Gamma, Commander. Edge of Council territory beyond this point. Our maps show only theoretical data," Creval replied. "Pulling up additional information, according to our records, the nearest civilization is a primitive species called humans. They inhabit a small yellow star system approximately 40 light-years from our current position." Zixthar's middle eye narrowed. He remembered reading about humans in the intelligence briefings. The reports were old, compiled nearly 200 cycles ago when a council probe had passed through their system. At that time, humans had barely achieved basic spaceflight, launching crude chemical rockets, and had yet to leave their own planet's orbit. The Council had classified them as a Level 2 civilization, expected to take at least 500 cycles before achieving faster-than-light travel. "Are you suggesting these energy signatures belong to the humans?" Zixthar asked, his tone skeptical. "The location matches their territory, Commander, but the readings suggest technology far beyond what they should possess." Creval hesitated before adding, "Perhaps another species has moved into the area." That made more sense. The galaxy was vast, and new species were discovered regularly. Still, protocol demanded investigation. Zixthar turned to his communications officer, a veteran named Silrex, whose silver skin showed the scars of many years in service. "Alert the rest of the fleet. We will approach with full stealth engaged. Maintain formation Delta 7. If this is an unknown species, we must gather all possible intelligence before making contact." 6 Velnathi scout ships moved in perfect synchronization, their sleek forms nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Velnathi stealth technology was the finest in the galaxy, capable of bending light and dampening energy emissions to the point where even advanced sensors could barely detect them. Zixthar felt pride swell in his chest. Whatever species lay ahead, they would never know the Velnathi were watching. As they drew closer, the sensor readings became clearer and more disturbing. The energy signatures resolved into distinct contacts, many distinct contacts. "Commander!" Creval's voice had lost its earlier excitement and now carried a tremor of fear. "I am counting 47 vessels ahead, repeat. 47 vessels." The number hung in the air like a physical weight. Zixthar felt his breathing quicken. Even the mighty Velnathi rarely assembled fleets larger than 30 ships except during times of war. Who could have built such a force in this remote sector? "Give me visual," Zixthar commanded. The holographic display shifted again, and Zixthar found himself staring at something that defied his expectations. The ships ahead were massive, easily twice the size of standard council vessels. Their designs were angular and aggressive, with none of the smooth, organic curves favored by most spacefaring species. They looked like weapons, pure and simple, built with only one purpose in mind: But what truly caught Zixthar's attention was their formation. The ships were arranged in a pattern he had never seen before, forming overlapping layers with smaller vessels positioned to provide coverage for larger ones. Every angle seemed protected, every approach covered by multiple weapon systems. It was a defensive formation, but one that could transition to offense in moments. "Analysis," Zixthar demanded. Silrex worked quickly, his three-fingered hands dancing across the control interface. The vessels appear to be of uniform design, suggesting a single-species origin. Hull composition is unusual. Layered metals with ceramic plating. Energy signatures indicate fusion reactors. But the output levels are far higher than theoretical models suggest possible. Weapon systems are extensive. I am detecting what appear to be missile batteries, energy weapons, and several systems I cannot identify. Zixthar felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. This was no primitive civilization. This was a military force that could challenge even the Council's most powerful fleets. Could they be human vessels? Krival asked quietly. Impossible, Zixthar replied automatically. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his mind. The ships were located in human territory, and if somehow, the humans had advanced far faster than anyone predicted. Initiate deep scan, Zixthar ordered. I want to know everything about those ships, hull markings, communication frequencies, crew composition, everything. The Velnathi sensors were powerful, capable of penetrating most forms of shielding and armor. Data began flooding in, and with each new piece of information, Zixthar's unease grew. The ships bore markings in an unfamiliar language, but the computer quickly matched the symbols to the linguistic database. They were human letters spelling out names like Indomitable Spirit, Unconquered, Eternal Vigilance, and Last Stand. Each name seemed chosen to send a message, a declaration of intent. Commander, I am detecting crew signatures, Silrex reported. Biological scans show oxygen-breathing life forms consistent with human physiology. Commander, these are human ships. Silence fell over the bridge. Every officer stared at the display, trying to comprehend what they were seeing. In 200 cycles, the humans had gone from barely leaving their planet to building a fleet that could threaten the galactic order itself. How is this possible? Krival whispered. Zixthar did not answer. He was too busy thinking through the implications. If humans had advanced this quickly, what else could they do? What other surprises might they have waiting? And most importantly, why had they built such a massive military fleet? Open a channel to Council headquarters, Zixthar commanded. Priority Alpha. We need to report this immediately. The communication system activated, establishing a faster-than-light link across thousands of light years. Within moments, Zixthar found himself speaking to High Counselor Vexner, one of the oldest and most respected members of the Galactic Council. Commander Zixthar, this had better be important. Vexner's image appeared in holographic form, his ancient features creased with irritation. High Counselor, I am transmitting visual data now. We have discovered a human fleet in Sector 7 Gamma. 47 vessels, advanced military configuration. They appear to have achieved technological advancement far beyond our predictions. Vexner's expression changed from irritation to shock as he reviewed the data. For a long moment he said nothing, simply staring at the images of the human fleet. This changes everything, Vexner finally said. Commander, maintain observation position. Do not, under any circumstances, make contact with the humans. We must assess the level of threat they represent before proceeding. Understood, High Counselor. However, I must report my preliminary assessment based on fleet size and weapons capabilities. I recommend classifying humans as a Category 4 threat. Category 4 was the second highest threat classification in Council terminology, indicating a species capable of challenging Council military forces and potentially disrupting the galactic balance of power. Only 5 other species in known space held such a classification. Agreed, Vexner said grimly. I am authorizing immediate surveillance protocols. Gather all possible intelligence on human capabilities. The Council will convene an emergency session to discuss this development. Vexner out, the communication link closed, leaving Zixthar alone with his thoughts and his fleet. He looked at the human ships again, studying their aggressive lines and powerful weapons. Somewhere inside those vessels were the humans themselves, the species that had surprised the entire galaxy. Commander, should we move closer? Krival asked. Zixthar considered the question carefully. The Velnathi stealth systems were unparalleled. No species had ever detected them when they chose to remain hidden. They could move close enough to scan individual crew members if needed, and the humans would never know. Yes, Zixthar decided, adjust formation. Bring us to within 50,000 kilometers, but stay alert. If anything seems wrong, we retreat immediately. The scout fleet moved forward, gliding silently through space like predators stalking prey. As they drew closer, more details became visible. The human ships were scarred and worn in places, suggesting they had seen combat or extensive use. Some bore markings that might be kill counts or mission tallies. These were not showpieces built to intimidate. These were working military vessels used and tested. Gravel activated the communication intercept systems, capturing human radio transmissions. The translators struggled briefly with the language before finding patterns and meanings. Commander, I am picking up multiple human communications. They appear to be conducting some sort of training exercise, Kraval reported. Training? Zixthar leaned forward. Play the transmissions. A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that sounded harsh and clipped to Velnathi ears. The translator provided meaning in real time. Blue Squadron, adjust your formation. You are drifting 30 meters off position, Red Squadron. Prepare for simulated missile launch in 30 seconds. New recruits, pay attention to your sensor displays. In real combat, you will not get a second chance in training exercises. New recruits. The implications hit Zixthar like a physical blow. This was not humanity's main fleet. This was not even their veteran forces. This was a training group, teaching new members how to operate in space. If this was their training fleet, what did their actual military look like? Transmit all data to Council headquarters immediately, Zixthar ordered. His voice tight. Mark at highest priority. Around him, his officers worked in stunned silence, each grappling with the same terrifying realization. They had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Kraval spoke up again, his young voice uncertain. Commander, I am detecting something strange in the human engine emissions. There are mathematical patterns I do not recognize. The energy fluctuations are not random. Explain, Zixthar demanded. I cannot, Commander, Kraval admitted. The patterns do not match any known technology in our database. It is as if the humans are using principles of physics we have not yet discovered. Zixthar felt his concern deepen. Advanced military forces were one thing. Unknown physics were something else entirely. What had the humans learned in their rapid advancement? What secrets had they uncovered? Continue monitoring, Zixthar ordered. I want every piece of data recorded and analyzed. The next few hours passed in intense observation. The Velnathi scouts watched as the human fleet conducted its training exercises with frightening precision. Ships moved in coordinated patterns, weapons fired in perfect timing, and communications flowed seamlessly. It was clear these humans knew how to wage war. Then, without warning, everything changed. The human fleet suddenly shifted formation. Ships that had been arranged in training patterns snapped into aggressive configurations. Weapon systems that had been in standby mode activated simultaneously. The entire fleet rotated, massive vessels turning with surprising speed. They were now facing directly toward the Velnathi scout position. Commander, Silrex's voice was barely a whisper. The humans are looking right at us. Impossible, Zixthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Our stealth systems are perfect. They cannot detect us. Yet the evidence before his eyes suggested otherwise. 47 human warships pointed their weapons at a position in empty space, where 6 invisible Velnathi scouts tried very hard not to exist. Then, cutting through the silence of space, came a radio transmission in broken but understandable galactic common. The voice was female, calm, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. We know you are there. Stand down. The words hung in the air of the Velnathi bridge like a death sentence. 4 simple words in broken galactic common, yet they shattered 200 cycles of Velnathi pride and technological superiority in an instant. Zixthar stood frozen, his 3 eyes locked on the holographic display where 47 human warships pointed their weapons directly at his invisible fleet. His mind raced through possibilities, searching desperately for an explanation that did not involve the impossible reality before him. That is not possible, Silrex whispered, his silver skin fading to pale gray. Our stealth technology has never been compromised, never. Not by any species in the galaxy. Craval checked and rechecked his instruments, his three-fingered hands trembling slightly. All systems show normal function, Commander. Stealth field is operating at full capacity. Light refraction is perfect. Energy dampening is complete by every measure. We should be completely invisible, yet the humans knew they were there somehow, impossibly. The humans had detected 6 ships that should not exist in their perception of reality. Options, Zixthar demanded, forcing his voice to remain steady. A commander did not panic, even when the foundations of everything he knew crumbled around him. We could retreat, offered Craval. Jump to faster than light speed and return to council space. The humans might lose track of us during the transition. Or we could maintain position, Silrex countered. They said to stand down, not to leave. Perhaps they simply wish to talk. We are a scout fleet, not a military force. We pose no threat to them. Zixthar considered both options. Retreat was logical, safe, the action any reasonable commander would take. But retreat also meant returning to the council with incomplete intelligence. The High Counselor had ordered them to gather information on human capabilities. Running away at the first sign of trouble would be a failure of duty. Besides, a darker part of Zixthar's mind whispered, how could the humans possibly threaten them? Yes, they had somehow detected the stealth field, but detection was not the same as danger. The Velnathi ships were still protected by advanced shields and armed with powerful weapons. If the humans tried anything aggressive, the scouts could defend themselves and escape. Pride made the decision for him. Velnathi were the premier scouts of the galaxy. They did not run from primitive species who had barely learned to leave their own planet. We maintain positions, Zixthar announced, but keep weapons armed and engines ready for immediate retreat. If they make any hostile moves, we jump to light speed immediately. Around the bridge, officers relaxed slightly. The decision had been made, and now they simply had to observe and gather data. That was familiar territory for scouts. They were trained for this. Should we respond to their transmission? Craval asked. No, Zixthar decided. Let them wonder. We will continue to observe. Perhaps they are bluffing, trying to scare off potential threats with false confidence. The human fleet maintained its aggressive formation, weapons tracking the Velnathi position with disturbing accuracy. Minutes passed in tense silence. The Velnathi sensors continued their work, capturing every detail of the human vessels. Craval pulled up additional data from the communication intercepts. Commander, I am picking up internal human transmissions. They appear to be discussing the situation. Play them, Zixthar ordered. The translator worked quickly, converting human speech into understandable concepts. Multiple voices filled the bridge, overlapping slightly as different human crew members communicated. Contacts are maintaining position, 6 vessels. Estimated frigate class based on energy signatures. Stealth capabilities confirmed. Visual and standard sensor detection is negative, but quantum wake signatures are clear as day. Should we send another message, Captain? Negative. We gave them a chance to identify themselves. If they want to play hide and seek, we will show them we can see them just fine. Training Squadron Alpha. Maintain weapons lock. Do not fire unless fired upon, remember? These might be friendlies who do not know we can detect them. The transmissions continued, and with each word, Zixthar felt his certainty crumbling further. The humans were not bluffing. They genuinely could detect the Velnathi ships despite the stealth systems. More than that, they seemed almost casual about it, as if detecting invisible vessels was a routine occurrence. But what truly terrified Zixthar was the phrase Training Squadron Alpha. Once again, the humans confirmed this was merely a training fleet. Somewhere in human space there were more ships, better ships, crewed by experienced warriors rather than recruits learning the basics. Commander Craval spoke up, his voice carrying a new note of concern. I have completed analysis of those strange energy patterns I detected earlier. I do not think you will like what I have found. Report, Zixthar said, though part of him did not want to hear the answer. Craval pulled up a complex mathematical display. The patterns in the human engine emissions are not natural fluctuations. They are deliberately generated quantum interference fields. The mathematics behind them are sophisticated beyond anything I have seen, Commander. I believe the humans are generating these fields intentionally. For what purpose? Zixthar asked, though cold dread was already forming in his stomach. I am not certain, Craval admitted. But the fields interact with standard subspace sensors in unusual ways. It is possible the humans use them for navigation or communication. He hesitated. Or what? Or they could be using them as weapons, Commander. Quantum interference can disrupt electronic systems if applied correctly. If the humans have learned to weaponize quantum mechanics— Well, Craval did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Zixthar turned back to the display showing the human fleet. Suddenly, those aggressive formations seemed far more threatening. If humans could weaponize quantum interference, they could potentially disrupt Velnathi technology directly. Shields, weapons, even life support systems relied on electronic control. If humans could collapse those systems— Silrex, can you confirm Craval's analysis? The communications officer worked in silence for several minutes before responding. Confirmed, Commander. The quantum patterns are too complex to be natural. They are generated by the human engines, but I believe that is not their primary purpose. The engines simply provide the power source. The actual generation systems appear to be separate components. So, humans have quantum weapons, Zixthar said quietly. Possibly, Commander. Without more data, I cannot be certain. But the capability is there. Zixthar made a decision he would later regret. Move us closer. I want detailed scans of those quantum generation systems. If we can understand how they work, we can develop countermeasures. It was the curiosity that defined the Velnathi species, that had driven them to explore the stars and catalog countless civilizations, but it was also the same curiosity that had destroyed lesser species who pushed too far, asked too many questions, and discovered answers they were not prepared for. The 6 scout ships glided closer to the human fleet, moving with the confidence of hunters who had never been prey. They closed the distance from 50,000 kilometers to 30,000, then 20,000 all the while. Sensors worked at maximum capacity, capturing every detail of human technology. The human fleet did not react to their approach. The ships maintained formation, weapons still tracking the Velnathi position, but not firing. It was almost as if they were waiting for something, though Zixthar could not imagine what. Craval continued analyzing the quantum patterns, building mathematical models and testing theories. His excitement grew as understanding dawned. Commander, I think I understand part of it. The humans are using quantum entanglement in ways we never considered. They are not just observing quantum states, they are actively manipulating them. This could explain how they detected us. Our stealth field manipulates light and energy, but we cannot hide quantum signatures. The humans are reading our ships at the quantum level. Can we block it? Zixthar asked. Not with current technology, Craval admitted. We would need to completely redesign our stealth systems. It would take cycles of research and development. While they had been talking, Silrex had been monitoring human communications. Now he interrupted with new information. Commander, the humans are discussing us again. You need to hear this. More human voices filled the bridge, and with each translated word, the situation became clearer and more terrifying. Captain Chen, the unknown contacts have moved closer. They are now within 20,000 kilometers, acknowledged. Maintain weapons lock, but do not engage. Let them get curious. Sometimes the best way to learn about someone is to watch what they do when they think they are unobserved. Ma'am, should we activate the quantum suppression field? Not yet. I want to see how long it takes them to figure out what they are looking at. Consider this a real-world test of our new systems. Admiral Okoye wants to know if we should send a more direct message. Tell the Admiral we are following first contact protocols exactly as written. We detected potentially hostile vessels in our space. We warned them once if they choose to remain and spy on us. That is their decision. When they finally understand what they are looking at, they will leave quickly enough. The transmission ended, and Zixthar felt ice forming in his veins. Quantum suppression field. The humans had not just discovered quantum interference. They had weaponized it and built systems designed to deploy it. And they were choosing not to use it, playing with the Velnathi scouts like a predator toying with prey before the kill. Worse, the humans spoke of first contact protocols. That meant they had prepared for meeting other species. They had anticipated this moment and created rules for how to handle it. The humans were not surprised or confused by alien visitors. They were ready for them, Commander. We should retreat, Craval said urgently. This is beyond our mission parameters. We have gathered valuable intelligence. We should return to Council space and report. For the first time in his career, Zixthar found himself agreeing with a junior officer's recommendation to flee. There was something deeply wrong about this situation. The humans were too prepared, too confident, too willing to let the Velnathi observe them. It felt like a trap. Even though Zixthar could not see the mechanism, helm. "Prepare for faster-than-light jump," Zixthar ordered. "All ships retreat formation. We are leaving this system." But before the order could be executed, before the Velnathi ships could engage their faster-than-light drives, something happened. It started as a barely noticeable fluctuation in the quantum readings Kraval had been monitoring. A small pulse of energy, almost too weak to detect, spreading outward from the human fleet. It washed over the Velnathi scout ships like a gentle wave, seeming to do nothing. Then, within the span of 3 heartbeats, everything went wrong. Warning klaxons blared across the bridge as system after system reported critical failures. The navigation console went dark, displays flickering and dying. Weapons control showed error messages in every subsystem. The faster-than-light drive that Zixthar had just ordered to activate refused to respond. Its complex quantum mechanics disrupted and collapsed. "What is happening?" Zixthar shouted over the alarms. Kraval frantically checked his instruments, but even those were failing. Displays showing impossible readings or no readings at all. "The quantum pulse, Commander. It disrupted our systems at the fundamental level. Every electronic component in the ship is cascading into failure. Around the bridge." Crew members worked desperately to restore control, but it was futile. The life support systems began fluctuating, temperature dropping as environmental controls struggled and failed. Emergency lights flickered on as main power systems shut down one by one. Through the viewports, Zixthar could see the other 5 ships in his fleet drifting helplessly, their running lights dimming as power failed. 6 proud Velnathi scout ships, equipped with the finest technology the Galactic Council could provide, reduced to helpless debris by a single pulse of energy from the humans. Silrex managed to restore partial power to the communication system and captured one final human transmission. A male voice, deep and calm, speaking in perfect galactic common this time. "Attention Velnathi vessels. This is Admiral James Okoye of the United Earth Defense Force. Your ships have been disabled by non-lethal quantum suppression. You are in no immediate danger, but you are also no longer capable of faster-than-light travel or offensive action. We are dispatching recovery teams to stabilize your life support and provide assistance. Do not resist and no harm will come to you. This is your only warning." The transmission ended on the holographic display, which flickered and died even as Zixthar watched. He could see human ships beginning to move toward the disabled Velnathi fleet. Kraval looked at his commander with all 3 eyes wide with fear. "What have we encountered, Commander? What are the humans?" Zixthar had no answer. He had led his scouts into human space, expecting to observe a primitive species taking its first steps into the galaxy. Instead, he had found something far more dangerous. He had found a species that had learned to wage war at the quantum level, that could collapse the technology of species far older and supposedly wiser than themselves. He had found, Zixthar realized with growing horror, a species that had prepared for this exact moment. The humans had known someone would come eventually. They had prepared countermeasures and protocols. They had turned their entire civilization into a weapon pointed at the stars, waiting for the rest of the galaxy to arrive. And now that galaxy was coming to meet them, whether it wanted to or not. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the Velnathi bridge as systems continued their catastrophic failure. Zixthar gripped the edge of his console, watching helplessly as centuries of technological advancement collapsed around him. The ship groaned, metal contracting in the cold as environmental systems struggled to maintain temperature. Kraval worked desperately at his failing station, trying to understand what had happened. His 3 eyes darted between displays that flickered between data and static. "Commander, I'm trying to route power through backup systems, but every attempt fails. It is as if the quantum pulse rewrote the fundamental operating parameters of our technology." "Explain that in simpler terms," Zixthar demanded, his breath now visible in the cooling air. "The humans did not just disrupt our systems. Commander, they changed them. Every circuit, every computer core, every quantum processor is now operating on principles that contradict their designed function. It is like trying to make water flow upward, or heat flow from cold to hot. The laws of physics have not changed, but our technology no longer understands how to work within them." Silrex managed to restore partial communication capability and immediately checked on the other ships in the fleet. Commander, all 6 vessels report the same cascade failure. Ship 3 reports their life support is down to 30% capacity. Ship 5 has lost artificial gravity entirely. We have maybe 6 hours before conditions become critical. 6 hours. Zixthar felt the weight of that timeline settle on his shoulders. 6 hours before his crew would begin dying from cold and oxygen deprivation. 6 hours to figure out how to fix technology that humans had somehow broken at the most fundamental level. Through the viewport, he could see the human fleet moving. 3 ships had detached from the main formation and were approaching the disabled Velnathi vessels. They moved with purpose and precision, closing the distance rapidly. "They are coming," Zixthar announced unnecessarily. Every member of his crew could see the human ships growing larger in the viewports. "What do we do, Commander?" Kraval asked, and Zixthar heard genuine fear in the young officer's voice. What could they do? Their weapons were offline, their shields were down. Their faster-than-light drive was completely non-functional. They could not fight, could not flee, could barely even keep themselves alive. They were completely at the humans' mercy. "We wait," Zixthar said quietly. "And we hope the humans are more civilized than their weapons suggest." The lead human vessel approached Zixthar's flagship first. It was smaller than the massive carriers and battleships in the main fleet, but still twice the size of the Velnathi scout ship. Its hull was dark gray, marked with scars from what must have been countless battles or training exercises. The name Indomitable Spirit was written in large white letters across its bow. As Zixthar watched, sections of the human ship's hull opened, revealing docking mechanisms and what appeared to be boarding tubes. The human vessel maneuvered with surprising delicacy for something so large, bringing itself alongside the Velnathi scout until the 2 ships were barely 10 meters apart. "They are preparing to board us," Silrex reported, his voice tight with anxiety. "Can we seal the airlocks?" Zixthar asked. Kraval checked and shook his head. "Airlock controls are offline. Commander, we cannot seal them, but we also cannot open them. We are locked in our current configuration." That problem solved itself moments later when a series of loud clangs echoed through the hull. The humans had attached magnetic clamps to the Velnathi ship's exterior. Then came a different sound, high-pitched and harsh, the screaming of metal being cut through by powerful tools. "They are cutting through the hull," Silrex said unnecessarily. Zixthar made a decision. "All crew, stand away from the airlock. Do not resist the humans. We are not equipped to fight them, and any resistance will only endanger the crew." He paused, then added, "Record everything if we survive this. The council must know exactly what happened here." The cutting sounds continued for several minutes, then stopped. There was a moment of silence, then a heavy thud as a circular section of hull was pulled free. Emergency force fields should have activated automatically to prevent atmosphere loss. But those systems were as dead as everything else. Instead, the Velnathi crew felt a brief rush of air before the humans sealed the breach from their side. Through the new opening came the humans themselves, and Zixthar got his first real look at the species that had so thoroughly defeated him. They were shorter than Velnathi, bulkier, moving with a heavy grace that spoke of high-gravity worlds. Each human wore powered armor that made them appear even larger and more intimidating. The armor was dark gray with red and white markings, and it bristled with weapons and tools. Helmet visors hid their faces, reflecting the emergency lighting in cold. Impersonal ways, 6 humans entered the bridge. Moving with military precision, they carried weapons, large projectile rifles that looked primitive, but were clearly well-maintained and ready for use. But they kept those weapons pointed at the floor, not at the Velnathi crew. The lead human stepped forward, and when it spoke, a translation device built into its armor converted the words into Galactic Common. The voice was female, firm but not hostile. "I am Lieutenant Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force frigate Indomitable Spirit. We are here to provide emergency life support and medical assistance. Are any of your crew injured?" Zixthar found himself surprised by the question. He had expected threats, demands, perhaps even violence. Instead, the humans were offering help. "No injuries," Zixthar managed to say. "But our life support is failing. We have perhaps 6 hours before conditions become critical." Chen nodded, the gesture surprisingly similar to the Velnathi sign of acknowledgement. She turned to one of her team members and spoke in her own language. The translator provided meaning. "Deploy emergency life support modules. Hook them directly to their environmental systems if possible. If not, set up independent units. The human soldiers moved into action, pulling equipment from storage packs that seemed far too small to contain what came out of them. They worked with efficient professionalism, asking permission before touching Velnathi equipment, but not waiting long for answers. Within minutes, they had connected portable life support generators to the ship's failing systems. Zixthar felt warmth returning to the air as the human generators pumped heat and fresh oxygen into the ship. Around him, his crew began breathing easier, both literally and figuratively. "Thank you," Zixthar said, and meant it. Whatever else the humans were, they were not monsters who would let stranded aliens die in the cold of space. Chen's helmet retracted, folding back in a complex mechanical motion to reveal her face. She was young by human standards, Zixthar guessed, though he had limited knowledge of human aging. Her skin was dark brown, her eyes a lighter brown, and her hair was pulled back tightly against her head. She studied Zixthar with open curiosity. "You are Velnathi," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," Zixthar confirmed. "I am Scout Commander Zixthar of the Galactic Council Exploration Fleet. How do you know of my species?" A slight smile crossed Chen's face, an expression that Zixthar's cultural database identified as friendly, but also slightly amused. "Commander, we have known about the Galactic Council for 15 years. We have intercepted your communications, studied your probe transmissions, and prepared for the day when we would finally meet you face to face in 15 years. The number struck Zixthar like a physical blow. Humans had known about galactic civilization for 15 years and had said nothing, done nothing, revealed nothing. Instead, they had watched and learned and prepared. "The probe that visited our system 200 cycles ago," Chen continued, "sent its data back to Council space via tight beam transmission. What your people did not know is that we intercepted that transmission. We decoded it, learned your languages, and began monitoring your communication networks." "We have been listening to the galaxy for a very long time, Commander," Kraval spoke up, his voice shaking slightly. "That is impossible. Council encryption is unbreakable. Hundreds of cycles of development have gone into our security protocols." Chen turned her attention to the young officer. "Your encryption is excellent. It took our best minds 3 years to crack it, but humans are very good at breaking codes, Kraval. We have had to be. Our history is full of wars and conflicts where the side with better intelligence won. We learned to break codes or we died. It made us very motivated learners." She turned back to Zixthar. "My captain would like to speak with you. Will you come aboard the Indomitable Spirit? I promise you will be treated as guests, not prisoners." Zixthar considered refusing, but what would be the point? His ship was dead in space, his crew dependent on human life support. He was in no position to make demands or refuse requests. "I will come," Zixthar agreed, "but I want my crew to remain safe." "They will be," Chen assured him. "We are providing life support to all 6 of your ships. My colleagues are boarding them now with medical teams and engineers. Once your people are stabilized, we will discuss what happens next." Zixthar gestured to Kraval and Silrex. "You two, come with me, the rest of the crew. Cooperate with the humans. Do as they say and cause no trouble." Chen led them through the makeshift passage the humans had cut through the hull. The boarding tube was pressurized and lit with harsh white lights. It connected to an airlock on the human ship, which opened to reveal an interior that was both familiar and alien. The corridors of the Indomitable Spirit were wider than those on Velnathi ships, with higher ceilings to accommodate human height. The walls were painted in neutral gray with yellow and red markings that Chen explained were safety indicators and direction guides. Everything was built solidly, with exposed pipes and conduits that suggested easy maintenance was prioritized over aesthetic beauty. They passed human crew members who stopped and stared at the Velnathi visitors with open curiosity. Some looked excited, others worried, but none appeared hostile. Chen led them through the ship until they reached what was clearly the bridge. The human bridge was larger than the Velnathi equivalent, with stations arranged in tiers so officers could see each other and the main displays easily. A large viewport dominated the front wall, currently showing the disabled Velnathi fleet and the human ships providing assistance. In the center of the bridge stood a woman who radiated authority despite being of average height for a human. She wore the same dark gray uniform as the others, but with additional markings that indicated rank. Her skin was lighter than Chen's, her hair the color of rust, and her eyes were a striking green that seemed to see everything at once. "Commander Zixthar," she said in perfect galactic common, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Indomitable Spirit. Welcome aboard. Zixthar realized with some confusion that this was a different Sarah Chen than the lieutenant who had escorted him. The translator must have been unclear about human naming conventions. I am honored, Captain, Zixthar said, falling back on formal diplomatic language, though I wish we had met under better circumstances. The captain's expression was unreadable. These circumstances are entirely of your choosing. Commander, you entered human space without permission, observed our fleet while using stealth technology, and continued to advance even after being warned. What did you expect would happen? Zixthar had no good answer to that. She was right. The Velnathi had been the aggressors here, even if unintentionally. The captain must have seen his discomfort because her expression softened slightly. But I understand you were following orders and doing your duty as a scout. That is why you are here as our guest rather than our prisoner. Please sit. We have much to discuss. She gestured to chairs that had been brought in, clearly designed for Velnathi physiology rather than human. Someone had done their research well enough to know what the Velnathi would need. Once they were seated, the captain pulled up a holographic display between them. It showed a map of the local region of space, with council territory on one side and a large area marked in human script on the other. This is human space, the captain explained, highlighting the marked area. 47 star systems colonized over the past 12 years, 32 billion people living on 12 planets and dozens of stations, and this, she expanded the view to show an impressive array of symbols, is the United Earth Defense Force. 470 ships ranging from scouts to carriers, 20,000 fighters, 15 space stations armed and ready to defend human territory. The numbers were staggering. In 15 years of secret development, humanity had built an empire and military force that rivaled established council species. How? Kreval whispered. How did you advance so quickly? The captain's smile was cold. Because we had to. When we intercepted that council probe's transmission, when we learned we were not alone in the galaxy, we faced a choice. We could announce ourselves and hope the council was peaceful. Or we could assume the worst and prepare accordingly. She pulled up images of human history, scenes of war and destruction that made Zixthar's skin pale, cities burning, weapons of horrifying power being deployed, millions dying in conflicts that spanned continents. This is what humans do to each other when we fight, the captain said quietly. We have waged war for our entire history. We have nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. We know what it means to face an enemy who wants to erase you from existence. So when we discovered the galaxy was full of species with technology superior to ours, we made a decision we would never again be the weak ones. The primitives, the victims, we would become strong enough that no one would dare attack us. She closed the historical images and brought up technical schematics. We took everything we learned from intercepting council communications and used it to leapfrog centuries of development. We built fusion reactors based on Velnathi designs but improved them. We studied council shields and made our own version. And when we discovered references to quantum mechanics in council technical journals, we didn't just copy the research. We pushed it further than anyone else had dared. The quantum suppression weapon, Zixthar said. Yes, the captain confirmed. It took us 8 years to develop and another 4 to perfect. It works by inducing controlled quantum decoherence in electronic systems. We can collapse the wave functions that your technology relies on, forcing everything into states that prevent normal operation. The best part is that it is non-lethal. We disable ships without killing crews. We remove threats without creating martyrs. Silrex spoke up for the first time. You weaponized physics itself. We weaponized understanding, the captain corrected. And that is humanity's greatest strength. Commander Zixthar, we learn, we adapt, we take what exists and make it better. You thought you were observing primitives who had just learned to leave their planet instead. You found a species that had been preparing for 15 years for exactly this moment. She stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the disabled Velnathi ships. Your people will be released unharmed once we have completed this conversation. Your ships will be repaired using our technology, which means you will take knowledge of our capabilities back to the council. That is intentional, Captain Chen said firmly. We want the council to know what we can do. We want them to understand that humanity is not prey to be studied and catalogued. We are equals whether the council likes it or not. She turned to face Zixthar directly. So here is what happens next. You will return to Council space and deliver a message. Tell them humanity requests formal diplomatic relations. Tell them we are willing to share technology and knowledge in exchange for being treated as equals. Tell them we seek peace but are prepared for war. And tell them that this fleet you encountered, this force that so easily disabled your scouts, is just our training squadron. Our actual military is far more capable. The words hung in the cold bridge air. Zixthar understood he was being given a choice, or rather, the Council was being given a choice. Accept humanity as equals or face them as enemies. I will deliver your message, Zixthar said quietly, but I cannot predict how the Council will respond. Neither can we, the captain admitted. But we have made our position clear. The rest is up to your people. Outside the viewport, human engineering teams were already working on the Velnathi ships, beginning the long process of repairs. Zixthar watched them work and wondered what he had unleashed by bringing his fleet to human space. He had come seeking knowledge of a primitive species. Instead, he had found humanity, and nothing would ever be the same. 3 hours had passed since the human boarding teams had secured the Velnathi fleet. Zixthar sat in what the humans called an observation lounge aboard the indomitable Spirit, watching through large viewports as human engineers worked on his disabled flagship. The lounge was surprisingly comfortable, with furniture adjusted for Velnathi physiology and environmental controls set to their preferred temperature. The humans were being excellent hosts, which somehow made Zixthar more nervous than if they had been cruel captors. Kraval sat nearby, his 3 eyes focused on a datapad the humans had provided. It displayed technical information about the quantum suppression weapon in surprising detail. Either the humans were remarkably trusting, or they were confident enough that sharing the information posed no threat. Commander, Kraval said quietly, I have been studying their quantum suppression technology. The mathematics are elegant but also terrifying. They do not simply disrupt quantum states randomly. They can target specific types of systems while leaving others functional. That is why our life support failed gradually rather than catastrophically. They chose to disable our weapons and engines first, then slowly degraded other systems to force surrender without risking our lives. Precision, Zixthar mused. They can choose exactly how much damage to inflict. More than that, Commander, Kraval continued, they can choose exactly which systems to damage. If they wanted, they could disable only weapons while leaving ships fully mobile. Or they could lock down engines while leaving crews perfectly safe. It is the ultimate non-lethal weapon because it allows infinite gradation of force. Silrex joined the conversation from his position near the viewport. I have been speaking with some of the human crew members. Did you know that this quantum suppression technology was originally developed as a safety system? They designed it to shut down malfunctioning reactors and prevent accidents. Only later did they realize its military applications. Zixthar found that detail fascinating. Humans had created a weapon from a safety system. It spoke to their dual nature, capable of both protection and destruction, often using the same tools for both purposes. The door to the observation lounge opened and Captain Chen entered. Behind her came a figure who immediately commanded attention despite being shorter than the captain. This human was male with dark skin and gray hair, wearing a uniform with even more elaborate rank insignia than Chen's. Commander Zixthar, Captain Chen said formally, may I introduce Admiral James Okoye, commander of the 3rd Human Defense Fleet. Zixthar rose quickly, gesturing a Velnathi bow of respect. If this human commanded an entire fleet, he deserved acknowledgement regardless of species. Admiral Okoye returned the gesture with a human bow, bending at the waist briefly. Commander Zixthar, I apologize for the dramatic nature of our first meeting. I assure you we take no pleasure in disabling your vessels, but we needed to make our capabilities clear. I understand, Admiral, Zixthar replied carefully, though I confess I do not fully understand what those capabilities are. How did humans advance so rapidly? The Council has monitored hundreds of species as they develop, and none have progressed as quickly as you have. Okoye settled into a chair with a sigh that suggested he carried great weight on his shoulders. That is a complicated question with a simple answer, Commander. We advanced quickly because we were terrified. Fear is humanity's greatest motivator. He gestured, and a holographic display activated in the center of the lounge. It showed images of Earth, a blue and green world that looked surprisingly similar to several Council homeworlds. When we intercepted that Council probe transmission 15 years ago, Okoye began, Humanity experienced something we had not felt for generations. We realized we were not alone, and worse, we were not the strongest. Every human culture has myths about what happens when a primitive civilization meets an advanced one. Usually, the primitive civilization is destroyed or enslaved. We were determined not to let that happen to us. The hologram shifted to show massive construction projects, thousands of humans working to build ships and stations. We mobilized our entire species, Okoye continued. Every government, every corporation, every scientific institution united behind a single goal: reach technological parity with the Galactic Council before they reached us. We poured resources into research that would have seemed impossible. We took risks that were borderline suicidal, and we succeeded, but only because we had a unique advantage. What advantage? Craval asked, leaning forward with obvious interest. Okoye's expression turned grim. We had already nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. Human history is full of wars, conflicts, and competitions that pushed us to develop better technology, faster. We had already learned to innovate under pressure. We had already built the industrial capacity to produce weapons on massive scales. We did not have to learn how to mobilize for war because we had never stopped being at war with ourselves. The hologram showed scenes that made Zixthar's skin pale, cities reduced to rubble, weapons that could destroy entire regions, conflicts that killed millions. This was not the history of a peaceful species slowly exploring their world. This was the history of a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of destruction. We have fought wars using sticks and stones, Okoye said quietly. We have fought wars using swords and arrows. We have fought wars using guns and bombs. We have fought wars using nuclear weapons that could end all life on our planet. Every generation of humans has faced some conflict, large or small, and every conflict taught us lessons about survival and innovation. He pulled up a new set of images, these showing human scientists and engineers. When we decided to reach for the stars, we already had thousands of years of experience in rapid technological development under pressure. We knew how to coordinate massive projects. We knew how to take theoretical research and turn it into practical applications within months instead of years. We knew how to fail quickly, learn from those failures, and try again. Silrex spoke up, his voice thoughtful. You used competition as a learning tool. Council species tend to develop through cooperation and slow, careful advancement. You developed through conflict and rapid iteration. Exactly, Okoye confirmed. It is not a better way, necessarily. It is certainly not a kinder way, but it is fast, and speed was what we needed. So we took everything we learned from intercepting council communications, and we did not just copy it. We challenged ourselves to understand the principles behind it, and then improve on them. The hologram shifted again, this time showing complex mathematical formulas and technical schematics. Zixthar recognized some as Velnathi fusion reactor designs, but modified in ways he did not fully understand. Take your fusion reactors, Okoye said, gesturing at the schematics. Excellent design, very efficient. But we looked at them and asked why they were built that way. What were the limiting factors? What assumptions did the designers make? And then we asked whether those assumptions were necessary or just habitual. We found dozens of small improvements, and when combined, those improvements resulted in reactors that produced 30% more power while being 20% smaller. Craval was staring at the schematics with something like hunger in his three eyes. That should not be possible. The Council's best engineers have optimized those designs over hundreds of cycles. Your engineers optimized them within certain assumptions, Okoye corrected gently. We came at the problem with fresh eyes and no preconceptions about what was or was not possible. Sometimes ignorance is an advantage, Commander. We did not know what was impossible, so we tried everything. He stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the assembled fleets. The quantum suppression weapon is the best example. Council scientists discovered quantum mechanics and developed some practical applications, but they treated it cautiously, carefully, the way you treat something precious and fragile. We treated it like every other tool in human history. We asked how to make it stronger, faster, more effective. We pushed it to its limits and beyond, and we discovered that quantum mechanics is not fragile at all. It is the foundation of reality, and once you truly understand it, you can do remarkable things. Zixthar found himself fascinated despite his fear. But surely such rapid advancement came at a cost. No species can progress that quickly without making mistakes. Oh, we made mistakes, Okoye agreed with a bitter laugh. Catastrophic mistakes. 3 ships were lost during early faster-than-light testing. A research station was destroyed when an experimental reactor failed. 2 colonies were evacuated when terraforming experiments went wrong. We lost 15,000 people in those 15 years of rapid development. The hologram displayed a memorial wall, thousands of human names inscribed in light. Each name, Zixthar realized, represented someone who had died in humanity's desperate rush to reach the stars. "We paid for our advancement in blood and lives," Okoye said softly. "But we paid willingly because we believed the alternative was worse. Better to risk everything reaching for equality than to wait passively for first contact and hope the Council was kind. We gambled that we could become strong enough to be respected rather than pitied or exploited." Captain Chen spoke up for the first time since the Admiral had begun his explanation. "What the Admiral is trying to explain, Commander, is that humans are not like other species you have encountered. We do not accept our place in the natural order. We do not wait patiently for the universe to offer us opportunities. We take what we need and we make our own opportunities. That is both our greatest strength and our greatest flaw." Silrex asked the question that Zixthar had been thinking. "Are you saying humans are naturally aggressive? Naturally violent?" Okoye considered the question carefully before answering. "Not naturally violent, no. But naturally competitive, yes. Naturally driven to improve and advance, absolutely. Violence is simply one tool humans use when competing, though we have learned over time that cooperation is often more effective. But that competitive drive, that refusal to accept limitations, that is fundamental to who we are." The hologram shifted to show scenes of human achievement. Cities that touched the clouds, machines that explored distant planets, art, music, and literature of stunning beauty. "We compete to build the tallest buildings. We compete to create the most beautiful art. We compete to answer the deepest questions about the universe. Competition drives us to be better, to reach further, to accomplish more. It just so happens that competition and warfare taught us lessons that transferred to competition in science and engineering." Craval was furiously taking notes on his data pad. "Admiral, may I ask a theoretical question? If humans had developed alone without knowledge of the Galactic Council, how long would it have taken you to achieve your current level of technology?" Okoye smiled. "Good question. Our projections suggested we would have achieved basic faster-than-light travel within 30 to 50 years. Full colonization of nearby systems within a century. The quantum suppression weapon might have taken 2 centuries, or we might never have developed it at all since we would not have known it was possible. But knowledge of the Council gave us a goal and a deadline. We compressed a century of development into 15 years. At great cost," Zixthar observed. "Yes," Okoye agreed. "But we considered it worthwhile. Commander, let me be completely honest with you. We knew that eventually the Council would come. We knew that our probe's transmission had been detected somewhere. We had to be ready when that day came. And we had to be ready in a way that would make the Council think twice about treating us as primitives or test subjects." He turned away from the viewport to face Zixthar directly. "That is why we did not destroy your ships, Commander. We could have. Our weapons are more than capable, but destruction would have sent the wrong message. It would have said humans are violent, unpredictable, dangerous. We did not want that message." "What message did you want to send?" Zixthar asked. "That humans are capable, prepared, and peaceful unless provoked. That we can be allies worth having or enemies worth avoiding, and the Council gets to choose which. We disabled your ships to demonstrate capability, but we are repairing them to demonstrate intent. We do not want war, Commander. We want respect." The hologram shifted one final time, showing what appeared to be a treaty document, written in both human languages and Galactic Common. "We have prepared a proposal for formal diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. It includes technology sharing, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. We are offering to join the galactic community as equals, bringing all our capability and innovation to benefit everyone." "And if the Council refuses?" Silrex asked quietly. Okoye's expression hardened. "Then we will remain independent. We will defend our territory and continue developing on our own. We will not seek conflict, but we will not back down from it either. The days of humanity being weak and vulnerable are over, Commander. We decide our own fate now." Zixthar felt the weight of the message he would have to carry back to Council space. The galaxy had changed in ways the Council could not have predicted. A new player had entered the game, one that did not follow the usual rules of development and integration. "Admiral," Zixthar said carefully, "the Council will not like being presented with an ultimatum. They are accustomed to controlling the pace and nature of first contact." "I understand," Okoye replied. "But Commander, the Council lost the privilege of controlling this first contact when they sent a probe to spy on us 200 years ago, without introducing themselves. They chose to watch us from the shadows. We simply chose to watch back and prepare for the day they revealed themselves. Now both sides know the truth, and we move forward as equals, or we move forward separately. Those are the only options." He offered his hand to Zixthar, a human gesture of agreement and respect that the commander had learned about during his brief time aboard. Zixthar reached out with his 3-fingered hand and grasped the human's 5-fingered one. The grip was firm but not threatening, a promise of potential friendship wrapped in a demonstration of strength. "Your ships will be repaired within 12 hours, Okoye said. "We will restore full functionality using our override codes. You will then be free to return to Council space with our message and our proposal. I hope the Council chooses wisely, Commander. Humanity could be the Council's greatest ally. We would prefer not to be their greatest problem." Zixthar nodded slowly. "I will deliver your message exactly as you have given it, Admiral. What the Council does with that message is beyond my control, but I will tell them what I have seen here. I will tell them that humanity is not what we expected, and I will tell them that the galaxy is about to become far more interesting than it has been for a very long time." Okoye's smile was genuine. "That is all we can ask, Commander. Welcome to the new era of galactic politics. I suspect both our peoples are about to learn a great deal about each other." Zixthar stood on the bridge of his restored flagship, running his 3-fingered hands over control surfaces that responded perfectly to his touch. 12 hours ago, these same systems had been completely dead, collapsed by human quantum weapons into expensive debris. Now they functioned as if nothing had happened, every circuit restored, every processor operating at full capacity. The humans had been true to their word. Engineering teams had worked through the night, not just repairing the Velnathi systems but improving them. Zixthar had watched in amazement as human technicians identified inefficiencies in the power distribution network and corrected them. The fusion reactor now operated at 5% higher efficiency than when it was brand new. The navigation systems responded faster. Even the life support ran more smoothly. It was a demonstration wrapped in an act of kindness. The humans were showing that they could have destroyed the Velnathi ships permanently if they had chosen to. Instead, they had made them better than before. "Commander, all systems are showing optimal function," Kraval reported from his station. The young officer had barely slept, spending every moment studying the human modifications and trying to understand how they had accomplished so much so quickly. The humans left detailed documentation on every change they made. It is written in both our language and theirs. They want us to understand what they did and why. "More demonstrations," Silrex observed. "They show us they can break our technology, fix our technology, and improve our technology. They want the Council to understand the full scope of their capabilities." Zixthar nodded slowly. The humans were master communicators, he had learned. Every action carried multiple messages. The quantum suppression attack had said, "We can defeat you." The life support assistants had said, "We do not wish to." The repairs and improvements said, "We prefer cooperation to conflict." And now, by allowing the Velnathi to leave freely, the humans were saying, "We are confident enough to let you report everything you have seen." "Commander," Kraval called out, "Admiral Okoye is requesting permission to come aboard." That was unexpected. Zixthar had assumed the humans would simply let them leave without further ceremony. "Permission granted. Have him directed to the bridge." Admiral Okoye arrived 10 minutes later, accompanied only by Captain Chen and 2 security personnel, who remained respectfully at the airlock. The Admiral wore a full dress uniform this time, dark gray with gold trim and a chest full of medals that told the story of his military career. He moved with the confidence of someone who had commanded ships in combat. though his face carried an expression of friendly professionalism. "Commander Zixthar," Okoye greeted him formally. "I wanted to speak with you one final time before you depart for council space. There are some things that need to be said away from my ships and my crew." Zixthar felt his concern growing. What could the Admiral want to discuss in private? "Of course, Admiral. We can speak in my ready room." The ready room was small by human standards, but comfortable for Velnathi. Zixthar gestured for Okoye and Chen to sit, though the chairs were not ideally suited for human physiology. Both humans settled in without complaint. "Commander," Okoye began without preamble, "I need you to understand the strategic situation fully before you leave. What I'm about to tell you is not a threat. It is simply the truth, and the Council needs to hear it." He pulled out a small device that projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots scattered across the display, hundreds of them spread through Council space and beyond. "These are human defensive platforms," Okoye explained. "We have spent the last 10 years seeding them throughout the galaxy. They are small, heavily stealthed, and equipped with quantum suppression capability. Right now, as we speak, these platforms are monitoring every major Council system and communication hub." Zixthar felt his skin go pale. "You have placed weapons throughout Council space. That is an act of war." "It is an act of insurance," Okoye corrected calmly. "And they are not weapons in the traditional sense. They cannot destroy ships or kill people. They can only disable electronic systems temporarily. But, Commander, if your scout fleet had not returned home, if the Council had decided to attack human space in response to discovering us, those platforms would have activated simultaneously." He highlighted several key locations on the map. Communication networks would collapse. Navigation systems would fail. Life support would remain functional, but faster-than-light travel would become impossible. The Council would find itself temporarily unable to coordinate military action against us. It would buy humanity time to negotiate or, if necessary, defend ourselves. Captain Chen spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "We call it the dead man's switch, Commander. If contact with human space is lost for more than 72 hours, the platforms activate automatically. It ensures that even if humanity somehow lost a first strike scenario, we would still be able to level the playing field long enough to survive." Zixthar stared at the map in horror. The humans had not just prepared defenses in their own territory. They had reached out across the galaxy and placed weapons in the heart of Council civilization. It was simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. "This is what I wanted you to understand," Okoye said seriously. "When you report to the Council, when they discuss how to respond to humanity's request for diplomatic relations, they need to know that attacking us is not a viable option. We have made sure of that. Any military action against human space would result in the collapse of Council coordination for weeks or months. It would be chaos." "You are forcing the Council to negotiate," Zixthar said quietly. "We are ensuring they have motivation to negotiate fairly," Okoye corrected. "Commander, throughout human history, peaceful negotiations have only worked when both sides had something to gain and something to lose from conflict. Right now, the Council has far more to lose than we do. They have a functioning galactic civilization that could be disrupted. We have a relatively small territory that we can defend effectively. The strategic balance favors peaceful cooperation over military confrontation." He closed the holographic map. "But I want to be clear about something important. We do not want to use these platforms. We do not want conflict with the Council. These are insurance policies, nothing more. If the Council accepts our proposal for diplomatic relations, if we can work together as equals, then these platforms will remain inactive. In time, as trust builds between our peoples, we may even deactivate them completely." "And if the Council refuses your proposal?" Zixthar asked. "Then humanity remains independent," Okoye replied. "We defend our borders and continue developing on our own. The platforms remain active as deterrents, but we do not use them unless attacked. We simply exist as a separate entity that the Council must acknowledge and respect, whether they like it or not." Captain Chen leaned forward, her expression earnest. "Commander, I need you to understand something that the Admiral is too diplomatic to say directly. Humanity does not fit the usual pattern of species development that the Council expects. We advance too quickly, too aggressively, too successfully. The Council will be tempted to view us as a threat that needs to be contained or controlled. That would be a mistake. She pulled up new images on the holographic display showing human cities and colonies. We are not conquerors looking to expand at others' expense. We are not predators seeking prey. We are simply a young species that learned hard lessons about survival and took those lessons very seriously. Give us respect and we will be valuable allies. Try to control us and we will be persistent problems. But either way, Commander, humanity is not going away. We are here to stay, and the Council must decide how to adapt to that reality. Zixthar sat in silence, processing everything he had learned. The humans had outmaneuvered the Council at every turn. They had secretly observed, rapidly developed, strategically positioned themselves, and now presented the Council with a situation where cooperation was the only rational choice. It was masterful strategy executed over 15 years of careful planning. I will tell the Council everything, Zixthar finally said. But Admiral, you must understand that the Council is not accustomed to being outmaneuvered. There will be representatives who view this as an insult, who will demand action regardless of the strategic situation. We anticipated that, Okoye acknowledged. That is why our first contact happened with a scout fleet rather than a diplomatic mission. If the Council had sent ambassadors, this situation would be far more difficult politically. But they sent scouts, military observers, and we responded as military forces do when unidentified ships enter their space. It keeps things relatively simple from a diplomatic standpoint. He stood, offering his hand again in that human gesture of respect. Commander Zixthar, you have conducted yourself with honor throughout this encounter. You protected your crew, accepted a difficult situation with grace, and maintained your dignity even when facing superior force. The Council is fortunate to have officers like you. Zixthar grasped the human's hand firmly. And humanity is fortunate to have leaders like you, Admiral. You could have destroyed my fleet but chose mercy. You could have held us prisoner, but chose to repair and release us. These choices will be remembered when I make my report. That is my hope, Okoye said with a slight smile. Safe travels, Commander. I expect we will meet again when formal negotiations begin. Until then, may your journey home be swift and peaceful. The Admiral and Captain departed, leaving Zixthar alone with his thoughts. He returned to the bridge where his crew waited anxiously for orders. Helm, Zixthar commanded. Set course for Council headquarters. Maximum speed. We have a report to deliver that will change the galaxy forever. The 6 Velnathi scout ships activated their faster-than-light drives, systems responding perfectly despite their recent catastrophic failure, as they accelerated away from human space. Zixthar watched the human fleet grow smaller in his viewports. Those ships remained in formation, watchful and ready, but they made no move to follow or threaten. The humans had made their point and were confident enough to let their message travel on its own. The journey back to Council space took 3 days. During that time, Zixthar worked constantly on his report, trying to find words that would adequately explain what had happened. How did one tell the Council that everything they thought they knew about human development was wrong? How did one explain that a species they had dismissed as primitive now held the technological and strategic advantage? Kraval assisted with the technical documentation, compiling detailed analysis of human technology. The young officer had grown considerably during this mission. His initial excitement, tempered by harsh reality, was replaced with genuine respect for human capabilities. Commander, Kraval said on the second day of travel, I have been thinking about what we witnessed. The humans said they advanced quickly because they were afraid, but I think there is more to it than fear. They were curious. Every human we met asked questions, wanted to understand how things worked, refused to accept that anything was impossible. That curiosity, combined with their competitive nature, made them advance faster than any species I have ever studied. You admire them, Zixthar observed. I respect them, Kraval corrected. There is a difference. I do not admire their history of violence or their willingness to take risks that cost lives, but I respect their determination and their capability. They are what they needed to become to survive, just as we became what we needed to become. Silrex had spent the journey analyzing human communication patterns and political structures. Commander, I have reviewed all the human transmissions we captured. They have approximately 197 separate nations and political entities on their homeworld alone. They spend enormous energy debating, arguing, and competing with each other. Yet when they detected the Council probe, all those entities united almost instantly behind a single goal. It is remarkable. Unity born from external threat, Zixthar said, common among developing species. But usually that unity fractures once the threat passes, Silrex replied. That is the interesting part, Commander. Their unity has not fractured. If anything, it has grown stronger. They maintain their individual identities and continue their debates and competitions. But they all agree on fundamental principles. They all support their expansion into space. They all contribute to their defense forces. They all share the same determination to be respected, rather than dominated. It is unity through shared purpose rather than enforced conformity. The observations from his officers gave Zixthar valuable perspective for his report. The humans were not a simple threat to be contained or a primitive species to be guided. They were complex, multifaceted, and driven by factors that the Council would need to understand if they wanted successful relations. When the scout fleet finally emerged from faster-than-light travel near Council headquarters, Zixthar immediately requested an emergency session with the High Council. His request was granted within hours, a testament to how seriously the Council was taking the human situation. Council headquarters orbited a peaceful blue world called Vex Prime, named after the species that had founded the Council 3,000 cycles ago. The headquarters itself was a massive station, home to representatives from 47 different species in the bureaucratic center of galactic civilization. Zixthar had been here only twice before in his career, and both times had been for routine briefings. This was different. This was history being made. He was escorted to the Grand Council chamber, a circular room with seating arranged in tiers so every representative could see each other, and the central presentation area. High Counselor Vexner waited at the center, his ancient features grave. Around the room sat representatives from every major council species, their various forms and physiologies accommodated by sophisticated environmental controls. Scout Commander Zixthar, Vexner's voice carried throughout the chamber without amplification. You have requested this emergency session to report on your encounter with the human species. The Council is ready to hear your full account. Zixthar stepped into the central area, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes from multiple species focused on him. He activated the holographic projector and began his presentation, starting with the detection of the human fleet and proceeding through every detail of the encounter. The Council chamber remained silent as he spoke, though Zixthar could see shock and disbelief spreading through the assembled representatives. When he described the quantum suppression attack and the complete collapse of Velnathi systems, several representatives exchanged worried glances. When he revealed the extent of human advancement and their secret observation of Council communications, the chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Vexner called for order. Commander, you are telling us that humans have been intercepting our communications for 15 years, that they have technology capable of disabling any Council vessel, that they have placed weapons throughout our space. Yes, High Counselor, Zixthar confirmed. And I must emphasize that everything I am telling you, the humans wanted me to tell you. They are not hiding their capabilities. They are demonstrating them to make their position clear. A representative from the Kethori species, a tall insectoid being, rose to speak. This is an outrage. How dare a primitive species spy on the Council? How dare they place weapons in our territory? This is an act of war. Before Zixthar could respond, another representative spoke up. This one from the Dravix, a peaceful species known for diplomatic skill. Representative Kethor, perhaps we should hear the full report before declaring war on a species that has just demonstrated it can disable our entire fleet without firing a shot. The Kethori representative hissed in anger, but sat down. Zixthar continued his presentation, explaining the human proposal for diplomatic relations and their strategic positioning. He played recordings of his conversations with Admiral Okoye and Captain Chen, letting the Council hear directly from human voices. When he finished, silence fell over the chamber. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Vexner addressed the Council. Representatives, we face a situation unprecedented in Council history. A species has advanced to technological parity with us in less than 200 cycles. They have done so in secret, preparing for this moment with strategic sophistication that rivals our oldest civilizations. And now they present us with a choice. Accept them as equals or face them as adversaries who have already positioned themselves advantageously. We cannot let this stand, the Cathori representative insisted. If we allow humans to dictate terms, every other species will think they can challenge the council. We must respond with force to maintain our authority. And how do you propose we do that? Asked the Dravik's representative. Commander Zixthar has just explained that the humans can disable our ships with quantum weapons and collapse our communications network across the entire council space. Any military action would be suicide. The debate continued for hours, representatives arguing from dozens of different perspectives. Some wanted immediate military action despite the risks. Others advocated for cautious diplomacy. A few suggested isolating human space and refusing all contact. The council was divided, unable to reach consensus on how to respond to humanity's sudden emergence. Finally, an elderly representative from the Vex species itself rose to speak. She was Counselor Dexana, one of the oldest and most respected members of the council, known for her wisdom and long perspective. Representatives, I have served on this council for 140 cycles, Dexana said, her aged voice still carrying authority. In that time, I have seen the council welcome 32 new species into our community. Each time we followed careful protocols designed to guide developing civilizations through the difficult transition to galactic citizenship. But I must point out that those protocols were designed for species that developed at normal rates and discovered us through our deliberate contact. She gestured at the holographic display showing human capabilities. The humans are not following our expected pattern, and we must accept that our standard approach will not work with them. They did not discover us through our choice. We revealed ourselves through carelessness 200 cycles ago, then continued to observe them without introduction. We set the tone for this relationship by choosing surveillance over communication. The humans simply responded in kind. Are you suggesting we are at fault here? The Cathori representative demanded. I am suggesting we share responsibility for how this situation developed, Dexana replied calmly. And more importantly, I am suggesting that the humans have presented us with an opportunity disguised as a challenge. They offer technology sharing, trade, and mutual defense. They bring fresh perspectives and rapid innovation. They could revitalize the council and push us to advance in ways we have not considered. Or they could destabilize everything we have built, another representative countered. Perhaps we need some destabilization, Dexana said quietly. Representatives, I must ask you all honestly. When was the last time the council truly innovated? When did we last make a significant technological breakthrough or develop a new way of thinking about the galaxy? We have become comfortable, stable, and perhaps too cautious. The humans are offering us a chance to grow again. Her words hung in the chamber, challenging assumptions that had guided the council for millennia. Vexnor spoke up. Counselor Dexana makes valid points, but the question remains. Can we trust the humans? They have demonstrated deception, military capability, and strategic thinking that some might call manipulative. What guarantee do we have that they will honor any agreement? Zixthar raised his hand requesting permission to speak. When Vexnor nodded, he stepped forward again. High Counselor, during my time with the humans, I observed something important. They kept every promise they made to me. They said they would provide life support, and they did. They said they would repair our ships, and they made them better than before. They said they would release us unharmed, and we left freely with full knowledge of their capabilities. Every action matched their words. He paused, then continued. More than that, I saw how they treated each other. Human crew members of different ranks, different backgrounds, different physical characteristics, all working together toward common goals. They debate and disagree constantly, but they respect each other. They are a contentious species, High Counselor, but they are also an honorable one. When they make agreements, they keep them. The word of one commander is not enough, the Cathori representative objected. Then let us send a proper diplomatic mission, the Dravik's representative suggested. Let us meet with human leaders, tour their facilities, and assess their culture directly. We can negotiate terms for formal relations while verifying their intentions. The debate continued, but slowly a consensus began forming. The council would send a diplomatic mission to human space. They would negotiate from a position of cautious respect rather than assumed superiority. And they would seriously consider the human proposal for partnership. It took 2 more days of discussion, but eventually the Council reached a formal decision. They would accept humanity's request for diplomatic contact. A delegation would be assembled, representing all major Council species, and they would travel to human space to begin formal negotiations. Zixthar was asked to join the delegation as a military advisor, given his unique experience with human capabilities. He accepted the assignment, feeling both honored and apprehensive about returning to the species that had so thoroughly surprised him. 6 months passed as the diplomatic mission was organized and prepared. During that time, limited communication was established with human authorities. The humans proved cooperative and helpful, providing detailed information about their customs, languages, and expectations for diplomatic protocols. They were, Zixthar noted, better prepared for this meeting than the Council was. Finally, the diplomatic fleet departed for human space. 12 ships carrying representatives from every Council species, protected by military escorts that everyone hoped would not be necessary. Zixthar stood on the bridge of the lead diplomatic vessel, watching as they approached the coordinates humans had provided for the meeting. What awaited them took his breath away. The humans had constructed a massive space station at the edge of their territory, clearly built specifically for this occasion. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of standard Council stations, with docking facilities for dozens of ships. The architecture blended human angular aesthetics with softer curves, clearly designed to accommodate non-human visitors. It was a statement of capability and welcome combined into one impressive structure. But what truly caught Zixthar's attention was the fleet surrounding the station. Not the 47 training vessels he had encountered months ago, but hundreds of ships, sleek destroyers, massive carriers, powerful battleships, all arranged in formations that were clearly defensive but also undeniably impressive. This was humanity's actual military, and it dwarfed what Zixthar had seen before. By the ancestors, Krival whispered beside him. They were not exaggerating. This is just one fleet, and it is larger than the Council's entire military force. As the diplomatic vessels approached, a communication came through. The voice was familiar, warm with genuine welcome. Council Diplomatic Mission. This is Admiral James Okoye of the United Earth Defense Force. On behalf of all humanity, welcome to Unity Station. We have been looking forward to this meeting for a very long time. Please proceed to docking bays 1 through 12. Our diplomatic corps is ready to receive you. The Council ships docked without incident, and as Zixthar disembarked, he was greeted by an honor guard of human soldiers in dress uniforms. They saluted smartly, a gesture of respect that transcended species barriers. Captain Chen was there to greet him personally, now wearing a diplomatic uniform rather than military gear. Commander Zixthar, welcome back. I hope your journey was pleasant. It was uneventful, Zixthar replied, which, after our last meeting, I count as pleasant. Chen smiled at that. Come, the delegation is gathering in the main conference hall. Today, Commander, we begin writing a new chapter of galactic history together. As Zixthar followed her through the impressive station, passing human and Council personnel who watched each other with curiosity, but not hostility, he reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. The galaxy had been forced to recognize that humanity was not another species to be guided and integrated on the Council's terms. Humanity had claimed its place as an equal, backed by capability and determination that could not be ignored. The age of human isolation was over. The age of humanity as a galactic power had begun. And as Zixthar entered the conference hall where human and Council diplomats were gathering to negotiate the terms of their future relationship, he realized that the galaxy would never be the same. The humans had ensured that. They had prepared, positioned, and presented themselves in a way that demanded respect. Now came the real test. Whether that respect could grow into partnership, whether 2 very different approaches to civilization could find common ground, and whether the galaxy was ready for everything humanity would bring to it. Looking at the assembled humans and Council representatives beginning their careful dance of diplomacy, Zixthar allowed himself a cautious optimism. It would not be easy. There would be disagreements, cultural misunderstandings, and moments of tension. But both sides were here, talking instead of fighting, seeking cooperation instead of conflict. It was, he thought, a better beginning than many first contacts throughout history, and if the humans brought even half the determination to peace that they had brought to preparation for war, the galaxy might just emerge from this encounter stronger than before. The conference began with formal introductions and carefully prepared statements. But as the day progressed and barriers began to break down, something remarkable happened. Humans and council representatives started talking not as potential adversaries, but as curious beings seeking to understand each other. Questions were asked and answered. Ideas were exchanged. The beginnings of genuine relationships started to form. And above it all, Admiral Okoye watched with satisfaction. Humanity had gambled everything on this moment, and the gamble was paying off. They were being heard, being respected, being taken seriously as partners in shaping the galaxy's future. It was everything they had worked for, everything they had sacrificed for. The age of human isolation was truly over, and the age of human partnership with the wider galaxy had begun. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them not as primitives hoping for guidance, but as equals, ready to contribute their unique perspective and capabilities to the galactic community. The scout who had stumbled upon them months ago had become a bridge between civilizations. The training fleet that had defended their space had become a symbol of human determination. And now, in this conference hall, representatives of two very different civilizations were learning that, despite all their differences, they shared common hopes for peace, prosperity, and understanding. It was, Zixthar reflected as he watched humans and council members begin the long process of building trust, exactly what the galaxy needed, a reminder that change was possible, that new voices deserved to be heard, and that the future belonged to those brave enough to reach for it. Humanity had reached, and the galaxy had responded. Now came the real work of building something new together. But looking at the earnest faces of both humans and council members engaged in genuine dialogue, Zixthar believed they would succeed. The galaxy was ready for humanity, and humanity, it seemed, had been ready for the galaxy all along.